Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a reality that's honestly pretty critical, but gets overlooked way too often: navigating the massive geographic disparities in disability benefits and support across the U.S. If you or someone you love relies on these systems, you might naturally assume the experience is pretty much the same everywhere, right? Well, as we'll see today, that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, let's dive right into this. We usually think of programs like Social Security or Medicaid as these giant, uniform federal things. You'd assume it's the exact same deal everywhere. But actually, your quality of care, your wait times, and your financial stability are deeply tied to your specific location. Your zip code, literally where you get your mail, dictates so much of the support you receive. Here's the roadmap for today. We're going to cover the federal benefit myth, then look at the best and worst states, uncover the hidden waitlist crisis, break down the finances, and finally go over exactly how you can take action. So starting off with Section 1, the federal benefit myth and why location is literally everything. Look, while the big money and the broad rules for Medicaid and Social Security come from Washington, the actual day-to-day administration happens right on the ground in your state, and it creates this crazy location lottery. Federal funding meets state-level policy. Take disability determination services, for example. They operate entirely at the state level. So your odds of getting that initial application approved, how long you're stuck waiting, your whole community support network, it all hinges on the specific policy choices made by your local state legislature. Moving to Section 2, the best and worst states. Let's reveal this location lottery. When researchers grade these states, they don't just look at one random metric. They evaluate the whole picture: economy, livability, healthcare access, the whole shebang. To really make this real for a second, look at the contrast here between a top-tier state and a bottom-tier state. Up at the top, Massachusetts is an absolute game changer. A staggering 98.3% of disabled residents are insured there. They've got solid public transit, which is so vital for mobility, and median earnings for disabled workers are hovering right around 24 grand. But then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you have Mississippi, lowest overall score in the entire country. We're talking super limited economic opportunity and really tough barriers to basic healthcare. Now, what's really interesting about this data is the nuance. Notice how North Dakota is this huge surprise standout. They've got a massive 58% labor force participation rate for disabled folks and just a 6% unemployment rate. That's incredible. Wisconsin is great for second chances, boasting high approval rates for reconsideration requests. Pennsylvania rocks it on livability and transit in its major cities, but then you look at massive states, and they present some totally unique hurdles. Texas sits at the absolute bottom for healthcare access, plus low monthly SSDI payments. In California, sure, they offer good benefits, but they get hammered in the rankings because of affordability. The cost of living is just so high, those benefits simply do not stretch far enough. All right, Section 3, the hidden waitlist crisis. This is the wait nobody really talks about. So outside of standard healthcare, folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities heavily rely on Medicaid waivers for home and community-based services. We're talking about crucial things like job coaching, respite care, supported living. But here is the kicker. There is a massive backlog. Over 607,000 people. That's how many individuals, a ton of them kids, by the way, are just stranded on Medicaid waiver waitlists across the country right now. In some places, you aren't waiting months. You are literally waiting decades. And we need to be crystal clear, completely impartially, about what this waitlist actually means. Like our sources explicitly state, waitlists are fundamentally a funding decision, not a medical one. Every single person on these lists has already been checked out and deemed medically eligible. They qualify. They are simply waiting for their state lawmakers to free up the cash and appropriate the funds to open a slot for them. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where this bottleneck is worst. Check out the top 3 worst performing states for waitlist volume. Texas is sitting on a backlog of over 181,000 people, with wait times pushing 5 to 15 years. It's wild. South Carolina has over 37,000 waiting. Florida's got 22,000, and get this, a third of those folks have been on that list for more than 10 years. Honestly, the math in some places is just devastating. In Kentucky, an analysis figured out that at their current funding levels, it would take 168 years to serve everyone currently waiting. 168 years. But then look right next door. Nebraska made a totally different policy choice. They actually invested the funds and completely eliminated their developmental disability waiver waitlist as of June 2025. This absolutely proves that this crisis is entirely solvable through state legislative action. Okay, Section 4, breaking down the finances. We're talking SSDI, SSI, and state supplements. Let's cut through all the confusing alphabet soup for a minute. First up is SSDI, or Social Security Disability Insurance. This one is an earned benefit. It's federal insurance based entirely on your specific past work history and the Social Security taxes you've paid in over your career. It actually does not factor in your current financial need. The catch is, to get it, you can't be engaging in substantial gainful activity, which for non-blind folks in 2026 basically caps your earnings at $1,690 a month. Now contrast that with SSI, or Supplemental Security Income. This one is completely purely needs-based. It's built for folks with very limited income and resources, and you don't need absolutely any previous work history to qualify for it. And a quick side note, depending on your exact financial situation and your work history, it is completely possible to qualify for both of these programs at the exact same time. But here's where it gets wild. Even though SSDI is a strictly federal program, the average payouts bounce all over the map depending on your location. Looking at the projected 2026 numbers, New Jersey is pulling in the highest average at over $1,694 a month. The national average is hanging out around $1,524. And down at the bottom, the District of Columbia averages just $1,358. Why the huge gap? Because SSDI is tied to your lifetime earnings. So if you worked in a state with a booming local economy and higher wages, you paid more taxes into the system, and your check reflects that. Now let's jump back to SSI for a second. For 2026, the federal maximum payout is $994 a person. But a lot of states actually pitch in extra with something called state supplemental payments, or SSPs, which can seriously bump up your total monthly check. However, and we are right back to our location lottery theme here, where you live decides if you get that extra financial boost. States like California, New Jersey, and New York, they pitch in. But if you're living in Arizona, Arkansas, or Mississippi, your state offers 0 additional supplemental dollars, not a dime. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, how to take action, protecting yourself while you wait. Look, I know hearing about all these systemic hurdles, the backlogs, the disparities, it's super easy to feel totally defeated. But you have tools at your disposal. So the crucial point is getting these exact 3 financial defense mechanisms set up to protect yourself while you wait for the system to catch up. Step 1, apply for SSI and Medicaid independently, like right now. Do not sit around waiting for a waiver slot to open. Getting basic Medicaid establishes your foundation. Step 2, set up a third-party special needs trust. This is huge. It protects any assets you leave for a disabled loved one from accidentally disqualifying them from future benefits. And step 3, open an ABLE account. These things are brilliant. They allow disabled folks to save up to $18,000 a year, totally tax-free, without it counting against their super strict SSI or Medicaid asset limits. And honestly, you shouldn't stop there. Make sure your life insurance points directly to that special needs trust as the beneficiary, never to the individual directly, to prevent accidental disqualification. If your state happens to operate multiple waiver programs, get your name on every single list you qualify for. Just get in line everywhere. If you're on SSDI and kind of want to try working, use the 9-month trial work period. It lets you test out a job without instantly losing your safety net. And finally, contact your state legislators. We already covered that waitlists are literally just a funding problem, and your individual personal stories are the most powerful tool out there to drive that legislative action. Which leaves us with this final thought. We have seen just how drastically the entire landscape shifts the second you cross state lines. So, if your zip code fundamentally decides your financial stability and the quality of your care, is it time to consider changing your zip code, or is it time to use this knowledge, make some noise, and advocate to change the system right where you live? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep advocating, and I'll catch you next time.